Right, hey guys, it's Weston here. So today I'm going to be reviewing the iPad Mini 3. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Vodafone for sending this out to review. Now the reason why I'm actually reviewing an Apple product is because I've always wanted to try one, and having never owned one or used one for an extensive period of time, I actually really wanted to see what all the fuss was about and see if one was actually worth getting, and actually if it's worth getting into the Apple as an ecosystem. So what I'm going to be doing is this review a little bit differently. I'm going to be talking about what impressed me with the iPad and what failed to impress me. But I'm also going to be answering a very important question, and that is, would I actually consider switching over from Android and using Apple as sort of my main area of tech? So I guess you'll have to stay tuned to find that out. So the first thing that failed to impress me is the App Store. Now this is nothing to do with the tablet, it's just my sort of experience with the App Store, and to be honest I don't like how it's laid out, and I found it a little bit sort of confusing coming from the Google Play side of things, but nothing to do with the iPad, it's more an Apple issue for me. The next thing I don't like is actually some of the apps as well. For example, apps like Twitter, I just prefer how it's laid out and how it looks on Android. The same with the YouTube app as well. Again, it's not an iPad issue, it's just a little bit of an issue I've found with the Apple way of doing things. So they're pretty much the only things that fail to impress me, and that's nothing to do with the actual tablet itself, it's more the software behind the tablet that failed to impress me. So now we're going to get onto the things that actually did impress me quite a lot, and the first thing is design and the aesthetic of the tablet. So up front in the center you've got your front facing camera for FaceTime and obviously for Skype and stuff like that, and that's pretty much it at the top. And then we go right down into the middle and we've got your display, and then right down at the bottom we've got your home screen button and your Touch ID, something I didn't actually use with this being a review unit, but I have read that it is pretty impressive. And then you can just see it's actually pretty plain around the front and it's pretty minimal and understated. So going round onto the right hand side, we've actually got a little slot, so you can actually put a SIM card in this specific model. Again, not something I do personally, I'd use a Wi-Fi version, but it is there. Then you've got your very nice volume rockers, and then your little switch here, and that actually allows you to turn the tablet onto silent and etc, etc. Then round on the top we've got your power button. Not the ideal place for me, I'd prefer to see it at the side, but it's there anyway. Then we've got your 3.5mm jack at the opposing side. Then we go right down onto the bottom when we've got your two speakers and your lightning port in the middle. Again, something I actually really like about this, and I'm not having to fiddle to get the thing in the right way because it just goes in whichever, which actually is pretty cool. Then we get onto the back of the tablet, and it's actually pretty minimal and pretty plain. So at the top we've got a little bit of a sort of plastic edition, and that is actually so you can use this because it's a 3G model. I'm not particularly keen on it, and I would just go for the Wi-Fi version if I was going to get one, but yeah, it's kind of an ugly edition in my opinion. Then we go down onto the middle and we've got your Apple logo, which is actually like a little mirror, which is pretty cool. And then down at the bottom we've got your iPad logo and information about the tablet. Build quality next up is actually again really impressive. It's really nice and solidly made, and yeah, I'm just generally impressed with how well it's built. The buttons feel really nice, all the machined parts look fantastic, and it's just a really well put together tablet. So the last up is actually the dimensions, which I forgot to mention, and it's actually 200mm tall by 134 wide by 7.5 thick, and it actually fits in my hand pretty nicely, and I found I could actually use this bracing it one hand and then using it obviously two-handed. It's definitely not just a one-handed device all on its own, but it's actually really lightweight and it just fits in my hand really nice. So up next is the display, and it's IPS, it's LCD, it's 7.9 inches, which is actually a really nice size for a tablet in my opinion, and it's got a really high resolution of 2048 by 1536, and with that you actually get 324 ppi, which for a screen this big is pretty impressive. And what I really love about the screen is basically just how sharp it is. Now I've seen 2K displays before, but this one, it's just really sharp, it's really crisp, there's loads of detail in it, and I really love how colour accurate it is as well. Now coming from sort of an AMOLED to then this, it's like, wow, I mean that's actually more colour accurate than what that is. And I also like how pictures look on it. I mean, they look fantastic. I've actually been looking at some of my photos, what I've taken from like past projects, and seeing them in this level of detail is just like pretty impressive, to be honest. And then things like the YouTube video playback again, even though it's only playing back at 1080p for some reason and it won't play back in 2K, it looks better than it does on my phone, which is odd because obviously it's not a higher PPI as my phone, but for some reason it just looks nicer. So the next thing I really do like about this tablet is the speed of it. Now, we all know and everyone takes the mick out of Apple for their specifications, but actually using one, it is so fast. So in this particular version, we've got an A7 dual core, which is clocked at 1.3 gigahertz. We've got a PowerVR G6340 quad-core GPU, and then we've got 1 gig of RAM as well to back that up. Now, that might not sound like impressive specs, but when the UI is as polished as it is and as optimized as it is, it doesn't need all that power to actually get it to run really quickly. So I mean, just going through the UI is buttery smooth, and it's actually much quicker than it is on my Android device and many other Android devices I've tested as well. And gaming performance is something I noticed that was really impressive as well. My usual game choices are Asphalt 8 and Angry Birds 2, and both of these games played fantastic. There was no frame drops, there was no lag, and again the quality was just great. Especially Asphalt 8 as well, I've seen more detail in that than I have on any other device, and it just played really nice and it looks really good as well. So the next thing I really do quite like is the UI. Now, I didn't think I would like it actually going into it, but it's actually genuinely surprised me. I love how clean and sort of minimal it is, and it's actually really intuitive to use. Like, I found double tapping the Touch ID opens up all your apps. And then some other things like the settings menu, I actually quite like how that's laid out. And again, it's just all really intuitive, really easy to use, and actually quite user friendly as well. Now, there is a couple of little things that I found myself doing coming from Android, and that is actually pulling down from the top of the screen to get my notifications. Now, it does actually happen on the iPad, but it's a little bit different. With Android, you get your Wi-Fi settings and all your other settings as well, but there's nothing there on the iPad. You actually have to swipe up from the bottom, and that gets you your access to your Wi-Fi, screen brightness, etc, etc. The next thing I really liked about this tablet is the battery life. So it's got a pretty respectable 6,470 milliamp hour battery in it. I've seen tablets with bigger, to be honest, but with a well polished and well rounded specifications, and the fact that it's not got really power hungry hardware, the battery life is actually not too bad. So you can see the first screenshot here. I got 6 days of medium use, so that was like a mixture of YouTube, gaming, social media, and just generally getting used to the tablet. But for the battery, I mean, yeah, it's not that impressive, because I've seen obviously better, but for what you're actually getting in the screen resolution, it's actually not too bad. So the next thing I really like actually is the audio. Now, the audio through the 3.5mm jack is about on a par with my phone. There's nothing really to differentiate it between there. The cool thing is what Apple have done is actually put a pretty comprehensive sort of presets in it. Now, this is more than what you get on Android, and you can just see on screen now a list of all the different presets you have. Now, that is much more than you get on the normal Android side of things without having to go third party. But I actually really like that. Now, usually I just have my EQ on flat just to get to know what it sounds like, and I was really impressed. Then we get on to the speakers, and there are 2 of them. Very, very nice speakers actually. And again, I was just really impressed with the quality. I mean, probably some of the best speakers on a product I've heard, apart from the HTC with the boom sound. These speakers are actually really, really impressive. They go fairly loud, and they're not tinny either. They sound really good. They've got a little bit of depth to them as well. I just wish there were actually 4 of them so you get more of a stereo sound rather than it just firing out to the side, but generally I'm impressed. So here's just a quick audio sample. So guys, I guess it's about time to answer that question I asked right at the beginning of this video. The first one being, did the iPad impress me? Well, yes it did, to be honest. I mean, there's quite a lot of things I liked about it, like the display, the build, the overall design, the UI, pretty nice as well. And I just liked it as an overall package. Now, there were a couple of things that I didn't like about it, but I think the positives outweighed the negatives, in my opinion. Now, the second question I ask is, would I actually consider switching over from Android to Apple? And to be honest, I don't think I would. And there's one main reason why I don't think I would. It's nothing to do with this product, this is fantastic. But it's just the cost of sort of getting into the Apple ecosystem that's really the deal breaker for me. Now, for example, this tablet I think retails for around £400 at the time I'm doing this video. I may be wrong and it may be cheaper, but it's still actually a lot of money for something that's quite old now. It's 2 years old nearly. So there is that. So yeah, it's just a little bit too expensive for me personally. I mean, at the minute I'm in Android ecosystem and I love it because it's so cheap and it's really easy to get into the ecosystem. Apple, if you're on a bit of a tight budget like myself, getting into this expensive ecosystem is quite difficult. So that is the only reason why I wouldn't consider switching over, is the cost. Nothing wrong with the ecosystem as a whole. I actually really do like it. It's just for me, I can't afford it. So if you are considering switching over, then if you can afford it, then it's definitely worth considering. But if you're on a tighter budget, Android is definitely the way to go. Right guys, so I guess that wraps it up for this video. If you want me to do any more videos like this style, maybe with Windows products or something like that, then let me know down in the comments with your suggestions and I'll make some videos. So that is it for this video. Thank you for watching and I will see you all on the very next video.